Hello. The Divine Code reading for April 23rd, pages 641 and 642. We are in the chapter Theft Incurred by False Measurements and the Prohibition of Cheating or Misinforming Another Person. Topic number 9. The Noahide prohibition of cheating only applies to deception in doing business. So cheating is when a person deceives another person about the value of an item, the value of an item being bought or sold, and one of the people is more knowledgeable than the other person involved in the transaction. Usually, this is the case of the buyer. Sometimes it can also be in the case of the seller. If one person knows the correct value of the item, but creates the impression that the value is higher or lower in order to cheat the other person of the correct, honest sale. If a person points out that there's defects and all that, and they can argue it to a certain extent about an item and whether or not it meets the fair market value for that item, things that might affect it, such as if there's a dent in a car, they can look at the dent. I can't, but if a person creates the false understanding of the baseline price of the item, that would be considered deception, and it's cheating to do that. If the buyer knows the correct worth of an object, but if the buyer knows the correct worth of the object for sale, yet is in a pressing situation and needs it urgently, and the merchant takes advantage of the situation to sell him the merchandise at an inflated price, this is not considered deception and is not forbidden for Gentiles. So getting back to the question of buying plywood right before a hurricane hits. People know a hurricane's going to come. Everybody wants to buy plywood to put on their windows to protect the house from the hurricane. And the hardware store decides to sell the plywood. Normally, it's costs $20 for a sheet of plywood. This hardware store is going to sell it for $100. Technically, as long as the plywood is, as long as the hardware store is not lying to the customers about this, it would not be considered cheating. Now, it could still be considered improper, and the government could make regulations concerning this, but it would not fall under the category of cheating the customer because the customer knows the normative value of the product. The buyer is just simply taking advantage of the situation to add cost to the item. Likewise, if the seller knows the value of the item, but his desire to sell it for less, for example, if otherwise he will have no buyers, the buyer may take advantage of the situation to get a lower price. This is not considered deception and is permitted for a Gentile. See Kidzot HaKoshkan 227:1, which states that one who exploits another's dire straits to sell him an item for more than 1/6 the value has committed a transgression of cheating. Now that's it appears he also says so only regarding Jews and not for Gentiles. So within the Jewish Torah law, there are measurements. There's measurements as to how much something is. This does not necessarily exist within, this is not innately within the Torah law for Noahides. Rather, each government decides their own measurements as it applies to their locale. So in one area, in one nation or in one locale, the government can decide that the hardware store is allowed to upcharge a certain amount. You can take that $20 piece of plywood and sell it for $25 because he has to hire people to work during the hurricane, and he has to have extra stock on hand in order to accommodate the people during the hurricane. Maybe he has to bring a truckload in, and the truck driver is charging extra money because he has to drive in the middle of a hurricane. So these are extra reasonable charges, and therefore the government might say he's allowed to pass on these reasonable surcharges to the customer. That's determined by the local government. Now, another government might say, hey, the market value, whatever the guy can sell it for, that's what he's allowed to sell it for. So different locales are going to do it differently. You might have another more stricter government that'll say, no, $20 is $20. That's what you pay. That's what you charge for the plywood. Don't charge extra during a hurricane. So the government decides what they feel is proper for their society and their locale. And whatever the government decides, that's the measure that is used in that locale. In the case of the Jewish Torah law for Israel, the upcharge allowed is 1/6, and if it's more than 1/6, then it's improper. But if it's within the 1/6, as long as the person knows they're being charged extra, that's allowed in the market in the marketplace for Israel. The difference is that a Jew's prohibition of cheating includes two types: the prohibition to cheat another person by extorting money through deception, and the prohibition to cheat another by establishing a wrong price, even if the other party agrees to it, but is doing so because of dire straits and is forced into buying. The first Jewish prohibition is logically a type of theft, since the other person is being deceived, so it is forbidden for Gentiles as well. On the other hand, the second type of prohibition does not include any deceit, and therefore it is not forbidden to Gentiles. So the Torah law is handling the first type. That's where he deceives the person into believing a different price for the item. If he deceives the person and says, no, $100 is the correct price for plywood, and the guy he's coming in to buy plywood because a hurricane's coming. He doesn't know the correct price of plywood. He's never bought plywood his entire life, but now he knows he needs plywood because a hurricane's coming. So he goes to the hardware store and he sees the price is $100, and he doesn't know any better. And therefore, he is given the impression that $100 is the correct price for the plywood. That would be under the first prohibition, and would be wrong. However, the second prohibition, if he goes into the hardware store and he sees the price on the shelf is $20, and then there's a $80 surcharge for the hurricane that's added to it when the hurricane is coming. There's an $80 surcharge that would fall into the second category. And then the question is whether or not the local government allows that kind of surcharge. And that's not within the Torah law. Rather, that would be under the decision of the local court, which is the a separate, the establishment of courts of law would handle that question. And it's not mandated within the Torah as to where the threshold is. It's determined locally by the government. Topic number 10. There was uncertainty among the sages as to whether cheating in buying and selling is completely like theft, in which case it is forbidden even in the smallest amount, or whether it is only forbidden and thus is considered as theft and deception when it is above a certain minimum percent for an item that has a set value. And that'll be discussed in topic 14, which will be in 2 days from now in the readings. Because of this doubt, the sages established a definite boundary for cheating that is forbidden and must be repaid. So within the Jewish law, where there has to be a set measurements. It's unclear whether or not the Torah whether or not within the Torah law there's a minimum amount of what would be considered cheating. Therefore, if the person is haggling in the marketplace and he says, no, the correct value of this item is $25. And the real value of the item that everyone, that's set by the marketplace, either set by the marketplace or set by the government, is the real value is supposed to be $20. If he says $25, he's cheating. Now, the question is whether or not that goes above a threshold that would be considered cheating. And the sages, because it was uncertain if there's a threshold, and within Jewish law there has to be measurements, therefore the sages came in and created measurements. But we're not certain if that applies. The sages established that for cheating, that the cheating that the Torah forbids in buying and selling is set at a sixth or more of the total set value of the sold object, such as the selling of an object whose value is $6 or $7, since this is the way that the world will tolerate, since it is the way that the world to tolerate this much extra as the cost of dealing with merchandise and is not theft. Any price difference from the set value that is called a sixth in common terminology for the local people is definitely cheating, since the people are generally not willing to forego the loss when they are overcharged by more than the understanding of the sixth. But most people are willing to tolerate an overcharge that is less than the sixth in their eyes. So what it's saying here, in their eyes and what they consider the sixth. So the terminology of the Divine Code, or in this case, the editor's commentary on the Divine Code, is that the idea of sixth is up to the local custom, or what I would call the courts or the government is decided, or it's the local custom of the marketplace, whatever people are willing to tolerate. Now, sometimes it's hard to understand the concept of fixed price, because we tend to live in a marketplace where there's not necessarily a fixed price. We know that a can of corn at one grocery store might cost $1, at another grocery store it might cost $1.20, and we don't have a concept of fixed pricing. And the closest thing you might have a suggested retail price from a manufacturer, and although usually those are inflated so that people can create the impression that they're charging less. But let's hypothetically call that the fixed price. The back of a book, you might find or inside cover, they might have the suggested retail price of the book, that a bookstore would sell it at this book, and then the bookstores oftentimes will say, well, we'll sell it for 10% less than that. So the number doesn't necessarily mean anything, but that's the suggested price. Now, a bookstore might put a sticker, usually puts a sticker that can be peeled off afterwards, and they might put that sticker over the suggested retail price. Now, normally you'd expect the price to be the same or maybe a little less. If a person were to go into the store, buy a book, peel off the sticker, and notice the underlying price was less, so the bookstore charges more. And the question is whether or not that's tolerable. Now, if in different societies, some societies would be very exacting and saying, hey, you can't do that. Other societies would say, well, yeah, we know that inflation, the bookseller may have had that book for a couple of years and now the book price is more, or the bookseller needs to make a living, so we understand he's charging a little bit more. Depending on whatever the culture, the marketplace, the local culture, the government allows, that would be what's considered the sixth, whatever so the sixth does not necessarily mean 1/6 in a mathematical sense. It's more of a concept of whatever is acceptable within that culture. A set value or set price is usually one that is set by the government or local authorities regarding items that do not have a set value, which applies in most cases for free economics. See topic 14 below. Again, that'll be in a couple of days. So I can think of something else. Licenses. A government issues a license, but then they allow local merchants to sell the license, because it's hard for everyone to go down to the government office, and it's hard for the government office to be available to the population. Therefore, they allow local industry to sell, merchants to sell the items. However, the merchant might be told that they're only allowed to sell at a certain upcharge for their cost. So, like in the city of Chicago, they sell city stickers for cars. If you have a car in the city of Chicago, you have to have a sticker goes on the windshield. It's a tax on the car. And let's say the city sells it, I'm not even sure what they sell them for, $100. I think it's more now. But you can buy it at a local merchant called a currency exchange. You can buy it at the local merchant, and the local merchant charges $100, plus he might charge an extra $7 convenience fee that goes to the local merchant to cover their cost of running their shop. The government might have a set price for what the local merchant's allowed to sell it for. That would be an example of the government setting a price. See Rosh Baba Metzia, Chapter 4, Shokanor Koshan Mishpat, Chapter 227, Minhel Kinuk, Commandment 337, writes that these two possibilities exist for Gentiles as well. So apparently there is the concept within Gentiles, going back to the idea of there being two different aspects of cheating. That the prohibition to cheat another is extortion through deception, and the prohibition to cheat another is establishing the wrong price. So one case is where he deceives the price, and the other one is to give a price that's different from the established price. Both of those, according to the Minchat Kinuk Commandment 337, is that both of these do exist for regarding the non-Jew. This only applies regarding an overcharge beyond the set value of the merchandise. But any mistake in the measure, weight, quality, or amount of the object is considered theft, and the perpetrator must return the money received from such a theft, even for the smallest amount, since people are fastidious in this manner. So, even if it's done on purpose, that's clear theft. It's also theft if it's done by accident. It's an accidental theft. And in accidental theft, the person is not prosecuted for an accidental theft. We might be prosecuted if he's real sloppy and he's been warned and all, but normally an accidental theft is an accident that the person did not do on purpose. And it just happens. And in that case, the person that received benefit from the accident is required to return the benefit to the other person. If he keeps the benefit, then that becomes real theft. Once he becomes aware of it, if he keeps it. But once he becomes aware of it, then he has to give it back to the other person, and then it's not considered purpose. It's considered accidental, and the person has received restitution, and there's no criminal issue involved. An example in today, I mean, it's very difficult with today. Today you got computers doing everything, and person goes into the store and everything's bars coded. Let's say the retail store accidentally forgot to add the sale price. The person was having a rough day, didn't have any coffee that morning, and they missed one of the items on the sale sheet. And so something is marked as it's supposed to be on sale, for a $10 item is on sale for $8, and it's marked as such on the shelf. But once they get to the cash register, it's rung up as $10. That would be considered that would be considered theft, but it's a mistake, and therefore, if the person receives the refund for the $2, the difference in price, then everything's fine. Things like that do actually happen, and it's unfortunate, but mistakes do happen. So when it's a mistake and it's corrected, then that fixes the theft. Likewise, the way of the world is to be fastidious regarding the amount of money received for a sale, and the buyer would be bothered even by the smallest discrepancy within the amount he is required to pay, such as 99 cents instead of $1. And this is considered theft. The Shokanor Koshan Mishpat, chapter 232. So, even if it's only a tiny amount, and governments will send people into the store to check, especially if the government receives in the city of Chicago, if somebody calls up and complains about the store that forgot to change the price in the computer to the sale price, the government can send a person into the store, check it to see if it's actually that mistake is within the computer, and can find the store for making that mistake, and the store then is more careful in the future, even if it's only a penny, because computers should be fixed in the proper way, even within the cent. Topic number 11. Likewise, in a place where certain staples are sold at a set price in every market, such as bread and milk. So in a society, and this is a curious thing, so we have within the Torah law the concept of set prices. Rather than every store deciding what they're going to sell a loaf of bread for, the government decides that they want to keep a stable society, and so certain items are sold at a set price. We actually do have price controls, usually keeping the price from dropping too low, because if it drops too low, that can hurt the producers, it can hurt the farmer who's trying to sell his crop, and he can't sell his crops. Therefore, the government comes in and has price supports in that. So in order to keep a stable society, the government can say certain items are going to have a set price. So people know they go into a store, they're going to buy a loaf of bread for $2 or whatever they buy a loaf of bread for. And they have everyone knows that that's the price. And if the government needs to come in and subsidize the bakers because they're having difficulty making a living selling bread for $2 a loaf, the government not only would set the price, the government would also make certain that everyone is able to survive with that price. If one sold it for even the smallest amount above the set price, this is considered theft, since these items are not sold in the manner of regular merchandise, and the people will be fastidious in even the smallest change of the price for these staples, and do not tolerate any extra charge. See Uruk Hashokan Hoshan Mishpat 227, topics 2 and 7. Mekanek, Mekah, Neh, Ephraim, laws of cheating, topic 7. So let's say they're supposed to sell the bread for $2. If a store decided that, hey, our bread is better than the other guy's bread, so we're going to sell our bread for $2.10 because our bread is so much better, and everyone knows it's better. Well, if the set price is $2 and they have to sell for $2, that's just the way it's set up. Now they could, maybe, I'm not sure. They could perhaps say, okay, we have poppy seeds, and so we're going to charge an extra 20 cents for poppy seeds. Maybe they can get away with that. So they have the cheaper bread, they have the basic bread, and then maybe they have other bread that they can sell, at an extra price, perhaps. But they have to have the bread, they have to have the set price available for whatever it is they're supposed to be selling it for the set price. And it could be the government says that, hey, any bread is $2. So even if the poppy seeds, you still got to charge $2. And then that's just, the merchant, if he doesn't like it, he can go into a different line of business where he doesn't have to deal with set prices. But that's whatever the set price is, the merchant has to go with that set price. Exchange of different countries' currency is commonly done with an additional charge for the exchange. If a principal bank of the country sets a comparative values of currencies, this is considered as having a set price in the market, and anyone who deviates from this rate, even to the smallest degree, transgresses the prohibition of theft and is a thief. So there are governments that are very concerned about the price, the stability of their currency. So they want to set the price according to what another, let's say their society might have difficulty with their currency, with their economy. It's a smaller country with a wobbly industrial base that they're worried about the value of their currency. So they say, okay, we're keeping our currency at a certain, our currency is set with the currency of another country that's much more stable, and they're just going to work with that other country's currency. Therefore, if the person exchanges the currency within that country, they have to have a 1-to-1 ratio or whatever the ratio is. And if somebody charges a different price, they say, okay, if a merchant decides he's going to go with a different price than what the government sets, it might make sense to him, and it might make sense to the marketplace. But when the government sets a price for the currency, it has to go with that. And the government that prints the currency they're in charge. They have the power to set that price, and other people that want to, they want to, within countries that do this, there's often a black market. The black market is considered theft if they're going outside of the valuated price, the set price. Even if the marketplace sets a different price, that different price is considered theft, and the people that engage in the black market are considered thieves, according to how it's being described here. However, regarding the fee one takes for the exchange, which may require more effort for some currencies than for others, this depends on the discussion in topic 10. In a place where there are numerous money changers and the currency exchange fees are considered like buying and selling, then the overcharge limit above the market value is the 1/6. And we know 1/6 is more of a conceptual as to what is accepted within that country. Doesn't necessarily mean a mathematical 1/6. Within the Jewish law, it means actually 1/6, but that's because in Judaism, in the Jewish law, there are set measurements that are written into the Jewish law. Outside of that, it depends on the culture or it depends on the government to set the amount. But if there is only a set fee, then charging anything above it, anything over that is considered as theft by deception, there is no permissible minimum permissible limit. So if the money changers within the culture that has a set price for the currency, they want to keep their currency stable, and therefore they set it as within a ratio with another country that has a stable currency, and they want their currency to remain stable, and therefore the government mandates that the stability within that their value of their money be tied into the value of another country's money. So if a person wants to exchange the money, it has to be based upon whatever the government says that's what they can do. And the merchant that does the money changing is allowed to charge a fee. Either a reasonable fee is accepted by the society, or more likely, in the case of a government mandated price, the government would probably mandate the amount the merchant can charge to exchange the money. And you have to go by that, whatever the set amount is, and you can't deviate from that, because if you deviate from that, that's considered theft. Another example would be tickets. You go to an entertainment venue and there's a set price. The entertainment venue sets the price. They say a price. The ticket costs $100 to go to the concert, but people want to go to the concert, and there's not that many tickets available. So what happens is you have these exchanges are established that they're not allowed to sell it for a different amount. They have to sell the ticket for the $100. However, they can charge an upcharge, and it depends upon the venue that is running the concert or the entertainment, the sports team or whatever. They can set the way that it's done, and the government gets involved, and the government may set limits as to how much of an upcharge they can charge for a ticket. And depending on where you're at, it can be highly regulated, or it can be whatever the market will bear. So you can wind up with a $100 ticket that has a $200 fee involved, because that's what the market will bear. And it's kind of getting around this whole question. That's the reason why government should get involved, but it's up to the local government how they're going to do it, how the society will accept. Governments probably should get involved in this area, but that would depend on what the culture of that society would like to see. Thank you.